Hello, and welcome to this session entitled What's New in vSphere 5 and Heartbeat 6.5. We wanted to take a few minutes and explain to you some of the great new features related to these products that have come out as part of the cloud infrastructure launch. The agenda for today is we'll go over vSphere, talking about the platform and recapping the status of that platform prior to the launch of the latest release. And then what we'll do is we'll take a deeper dive into vSphere 5. The product that is now our current version of the market-leading platform for virtualization. And when we do that, we'll get into a number of different very key and important areas. We'll talk about infrastructure service related to compute, storage, and networking changes that we've made. We'll talk about application services related to how do you make applications more available, more secure, and more scalable. And then we'll get into talking about some additional features and enhancements that are part of the capabilities we know as vSphere 5. In addition to that, we'll also be looking at ESXI migration, as with this particular release. As many of you have probably learned or know, we're going to have one version of our hypervisor available for the offering itself. When you move to 5, you will need to use ESXI. And then we'll talk a little bit about the packaging structures related to vSphere 5, some pieces around its kits where we sell some of the management and the server licenses together, and then the a la carte editions that we also offer, as well as some information around how to proceed with an upgrade and how we can help you do that. We'll also cover probably a product that many of you may not know as well, something we call vCenter Heartbeat, which actually allows you to go ahead and have a high availability scenario for the vCenter server component that works with vSphere. So that is also revving as a result of this particular launch, and I want to take a quick look at version 6.4. So just for those of you who may not be as familiar with vSphere, just a quick overview of what the technology does. Obviously, this is the flagship server virtualization technology from VMware. And in terms of what we're able to offer in comparison to the industry, this is by far and away the most complete and robust virtualization platform that's out there. You can take a look at any industry statistics that you like. They all point to the same factor around vSphere being and VMware being the dominant player in the virtualization space. And when we look at specifically what it provides, similar to kind of the outline that I showed you before, we provide infrastructure service to go ahead and virtualize compute, storage, and network resources and make those available to all the virtualized machines that are there. We can also provide application services that look to provide better availability, security, scale, performance for any application running inside of the virtualized platform. And then also we provide the basic management services that you would need, things like looking after an entire site, a number of machines, patching, and a variety of other capabilities. This is done in conjunction with the vCenter server that is basically the brain behind vSphere. It allows us to understand where things are and what's going on and give us that bird's eye view into the overall environment. In terms of what the benefits are of vSphere, just in a very consolidated fashion, definitely allows us to streamline IT operations and help reduce CapEx costs as well as OpEx costs in a very, very significant way. Many of you have probably experienced the online calculator that we have on VMware.com. If you haven't, definitely take a look at that. It's one very wide industry acclaim because you can put your own numbers in it and see just what the end sum value of virtualization would be for your environment. In addition to just the CapEx and OpEx pieces, obviously vSphere provides a very strong disaster recovery platform. So folks can not only consolidate servers, but they can also go ahead and make sure that they have a very sound disaster recovery plan in place. Because you can bring virtual machines back to life very quickly after they're either blown away intentionally or you have some type of issue with them, it makes your disaster recovery a lot easier. It can also be tied in with some other tools like our Site Recovery Manager to take care of disasters from a larger site perspective. In addition to that, this platform also runs mission-critical applications. Any type of application will work in the virtualization platform, but also we've seen a definite shift in our customer base toward moving toward more Tier 1 and Tier 2 class applications being put in the virtualization platform. And the reason for that is just the performance that you're able to get. If you're able to get the same or better performance out of the virtualization platform as you did in running those applications on the physical side, you're going to go ahead and do that because virtualization not only provides that SLA that you're looking for, but it also reduces power, reduces cooling, and reduces floor space required to run those particular IT assets. And the last piece, obviously, we here at VMware believe that the use of virtualization is the path for the cloud. So having that underpinning and foundation represents the best way for folks to move forward in whatever type of cloud architecture it is that they seek. So a private, public, or a hybrid type of approach, vSphere is going to be the basis for that, and we think provides the best way for customers to engage with the cloud computing model. Okay, so now that we've explained vSphere in kind of a high level, let's take just a quick recap as to where we were prior to launching vSphere 5. And what we've provided over time is a lot of different capabilities related to the kind of buckets I was talking about before. So you see at the bottom infrastructure service, you see the application services, and you see the high-end vCenter server componentry. And underneath those, in those interlocking gray pieces, you see a lot of different technologies that we offer. So across the bottom, looking at our different hypervisors as well as load balancing and memory overcommit technologies, which have helped our customers achieve better compute capabilities for some period of time. You can also see how we've also done a lot in the storage and network sides to make sure that we are very robust as well as very optimized in the use of those styles of resources. So you can see with our file system, our clustered file system, our ability to provide thin provisioning, some SLA management, as well as APIs on the storage side, and then also some more detailed information about our distributed switch as well as other SLA capabilities for the network. Up top, when you look at application services, by far and away a lot of great functionality packed into that particular bucket. Our high availability technology as well, so or in conjunction with things like vMotion, very well utilized by the existing customer base, but also very well recognized in the industry as providing the best high availability and also live migration technology out there for virtualization. And then as we go through security and scale, also having deep ties through APIs as well as other technologies like our vShield line, which you can see more details in another module that we have, but also the ability to scale out significantly. So the virtualization platform is able to grow along with the business as required by the needs of that particular business. And then the high end, as I've referred to a couple of times already in this module, the ability to have vCenter Server as the overall management construct into vSphere. And so we have a number of ways of providing templates for machines, linking vCenter servers together, providing advanced workflow, as well as providing advanced patch management and updating for the entire environment. And so that was really the construct before the launch of vSphere 5 and had provided this to well over 200,000 customers that are out there today. But with vSphere 5, we again wanted to push forward in terms of what we're able to offer. So as you look at vSphere 5, we are bringing to market, obviously, this next generation of our vSphere technology, and really think, again, this is the best platform to build cloud infrastructures of any type. And this will continue to be something that we'll talk about for a long period of time. In fact, when you see the new features of vSphere 5, hopefully you'll get a sense of why we're doing some of the new things we are, because it's going to enable us to proliferate cloud architectures and help people as they go and move toward the cloud. So if I take that same diagram we had earlier with 4.1 and change that to 5, based on what we announced today, you can see a lot of technology additions and enhancements that we've made to our platform. And so again looking to modify compute, storage, and network across the bottom. In fact, in today's presentation, this module, you're going to see a lot of detail paid to storage because that is probably the largest area of focus for us with this particular launch and getting into concepts like our intelligent policy management. Then you'll also see us talk a little bit about the application side. So not only the size of VMs have they increased very significantly, but also the protection that we're able to offer through new architecture of our HA piece, as well as a modification to vMotion that now enables more of a metro or cluster larger distance between the two hosts that you may be having a vMotion activity between. And then at the top, we'll spend a little bit of time also talking about some of the new management enhancements and options that we're going to give to users for the first time. So allowing us now to have vCenter Server as a virtual appliance, and then also looking at the new web client that we have that will allow better access to the vSphere environment given any type of browser that we support, and not having to force you into a particular type of hardware in order to view and manage the environment. So what we'll do in the remainder of this presentation is, again, we're going to focus on the product side, and we'll focus in the infrastructure services first, build up through the application services, and then get up through the kind of best of the rest features that are also part of this release. One thing to keep in mind is that any time VMware comes out with a major release for vSphere, actually any release at all, we actually usually have over 150 new features and enhancements. So we're going to go through the major highlights that we have here, but definitely for more advanced users or people who want more information, definitely very valuable to go to VMware.com, download our release notes, and get further detail about what we're able to offer with this particular release. So as we go through infrastructure service, again, we'll focus a little on compute storage and also some of the networking capabilities that we offer with the release. And the first stop in this particular release itself is obviously the convergence to ESXi. For those of you who are not familiar, VMware has in the past offered two hypervisor technologies underneath its platform known as vSphere, and those are ESX and also ESXi. We've decided moving forward that ESXi is the best way for our customers to basically continue along their cloud journey and also continue to proliferate virtualization in their environment. And the reason that we've done that is this architecture is the thinnest architecture in the market. Because it is the thinnest architecture, it provides a more secure environment. It also provides a more performant environment, as well as the ability for us to streamline configurations, deployments, patching, updating, all that type of stuff becomes tremendously simplified by having this architecture. And so really when you look at ESXi, we consider this the gold standard in hypervisors in the market today. And so when people use and move to 5, they're going to need to use this ESXi architecture. If anybody needs further information around the differences between ESX and ESXi, we actually have a complete info center up on VMware.com. If you went up to VMware.com and clicked on the vSphere heading, you'd actually get a list of the info center on the right. You can go ahead and click on the link that's on the right-hand side of that page and get to further detail around what we're doing in this area. I'll talk more about this too in the module as we get into the ESXi migration a little bit later on today. So the first piece around what we're trying to do from an infrastructure perspective is relating to how we more quickly and efficiently automate the push of additional vSphere hosts. So today, when we go ahead and look out at the marketplace, if you're a world-class administrator and you have all your scripts and all your ducks in a row, you can probably deploy a ESXi host in about 15 minutes. What we've seen, though, for a lot of folks is that that's not a reality for their particular environment or their particular scenario. So what that leads to is generally 20, 25, 30 minutes or longer to actually deploy a new host. And in the cloud models and this other idea of, bursting out applications and things like that and being able to respond to business more quickly, we need to have a better way of helping folks to go ahead and deploy more ESXi hosts. And so the way we're going to do that is by utilizing this capability we know as auto-deploy. And the goal that we have, and I've seen this in a lot of our testing that we've done, is to be able to deploy a new host in something like 5 minutes or less into the environment. So what you can see here is that we have a green box up at the top. It's our vCenter server, which could hold our not only some of the information that we already have in vCenter server, things like host profiles, but could also, on that same server, also have a virtual appliance that we call the auto-deploy virtual appliance. So for simplicity, we've brought those together in the graphic. And what you can also see is we have an existing cluster down the bottom already running vSphere. So the scenario that we have is, hey, I wake up and I know that I need to deploy a new application, or I have a new user and I need to bring out more VMs and therefore I need more hosts. I need to go ahead and bring on a host. Then once I go ahead and bring that host onto the environment, I need to feed it some information. So the first piece I'll feed it is an image profile that will be based on the server type that we have, and you can create any type of server type that you have. So depending on your vendor, you'll create one, possibly for each different types of server you have. Once I have that, the machine gets up and running as an ESXi box, but it doesn't have any awareness as to what's going on in the rest of the environment. And then what I do is I feed it that additional information we talked about before, something called the host profile, that gives it some other information about network settings, security settings, storage settings, and a variety of other pieces of information. And therefore, after that point, it can go ahead and join the correct vCenter server, and then we can go ahead and migrate and load balance accordingly and add that into the environment in a very appropriate way. So again, the idea is to be as very efficient and more expedited than we've been in the past with installation. In addition to this, though, deployment is only one aspect that really gets to the heart of what auto-deploy was designed to do. The other aspect actually gets into the updating and patching of these particular machines. So auto-deploy, one of the things it's able to do is change the operational model that people actually look to the environment and how they actually, traditionally patch or update a machine today. And what you'd actually do in the case of machines today is you go out to each one and you go ahead and deploy your patches or updates as necessary. And you do that on a specific server basis. What we can do here is we can actually go ahead and change an image up at the green box, the centralized repository where we have those image profiles. And once we do that, if we reboot the boxes down below, we can go ahead and capture that image. The code is actually loaded in memory and not on disk, so it actually makes the servers, from the economic term or the economic world, we know the word fungible, so there's no personality actually related to that particular server. So I can go ahead and lose that one and then bring out another one very quickly and bring the image to it. There's nothing that's specific or personalized for that particular host. The other side of this is I've shown an example where I've added one server, but auto-deploy also works for kind of heavy, or with the concept of heavy parallelism in mind. So it's very often the case where you're going to deploy more than one server to support an application, so we can go ahead and deploy many servers, not just one, and do so in a much more expedited fashion. So in addition to auto-deploy being part of this concept that we've talked about at a higher level around intelligent policy management, we also have several storage technologies that are driving us to higher and higher levels of intelligent policy automation. So in this particular case, we're talking about two features, one called Storage DRS and the other called Profile-Driven Storage. And the first piece that I'm going to talk about here is Storage DRS in kind of all its capabilities and what it's able to provide, and then we'll layer in the profile-driven storage on top of that to provide a very specific use case. I want to be very clear, though, that these technologies can function outside of, or they're not dependent on each other in order to function. We're just happening to show it this way in order to make it just easier to view and visualize what the capability is that we're announcing here. So in this particular case, what you see is you see a number of storage resources that are here. There are 9 in total. And having 9 in total is not necessarily a bad thing, but as I go ahead and manage a larger group of environment, or if I have many different people looking at how and where to place data for a virtual machine, it can get a little bit challenging in terms of managing all these resources. So the first thing I can do with our storage DRS technology is I can now group these things together. We use a fancy term called data store clusters to do this, but it represents a really easy way for us to go ahead and manage from a higher level. So grouping functions now take my 9 entities that I may have been managing individually before and now changes them into 3 entities, and that's a lot easier for me to consume. I can do this also across different array types. So if I know that I have vendor array A, vendor array B, and vendor array C, I can go ahead and mix and match these into these different data store clusters according to whatever capabilities I want. And the most logical way we see people wanting to do this when they create these groups is they'll take their high-performance gear, put it probably into a Tier 1 type of group, their medium performance gear, put that into a kind of Tier 2 type of group, and then the low-performance gear into maybe a Tier 3 type of group. You can actually, as we'll go through profile-driven storage a little bit later, in the GUI actually label these. In this particular case, you create these groups, you have them ready to go, and then you can go ahead and do some really interesting things. Once I go ahead and create a new VM, I can go ahead and put them into any one of these groups that I like. And once I have them there, what Storage DRS will do is it will actually place them to the best of its knowledge as to where's the best place to put them. And when we actually think about the best place to put them, we base that on a number of different characteristics. We can base that on space, we can base it on I/O balance or load, and then we can also base it on some rules that we can create, things we call anti-affinity rules that can go ahead and help us figure out, okay, where's the best place to put that you can also do is, if you're interested in doing this, you can turn off the I/O capability, the I/O balancing piece, if you have a storage vendor of choice that does something like auto-tiering. So we want to integrate very easily with some of those third-party technologies, and if you've already gone down the path with a particular vendor, this will work very well, so we can go ahead and do things like our initial placement. We can also do things like the data store cluster maintenance mode, where we can go ahead and make sure that we can update a host and move its VMs and also its related storage to different repositories, so that we can go ahead and have a maintenance mode where you can go ahead and fix that particular host or that environment without any downtime whatsoever. So storage DRS, again, probably one of the quintessential features of this particular release, and something we think a lot of folks are going to gravitate toward. Now, in addition to providing this capability, we also have what I mentioned before, the profile-driven storage piece. So in that case, what you can actually do, given that you have this style environment, and again, you could run profile-driven storage without storage DRS, but I think a lot of people will run these in combination. With profile-driven storage, what you could do inside of the vSphere GUI is you could set up a number of different characteristics related to the storage that you have. So imagine a scenario where you have a more senior administrator that sets up the storage, but then you have other people that are also using the environment. And instead of forcing those other folks that come in to basically understand the different levels of storage that you have and the different types of storage resources, you can simply have those folks select from the different types of service levels that they need. So in this case, I've put a service level into the GUI that says high I/O throughput. And what's going to happen as an administrator, what I've done is I've mapped that particular requirement to the Tier 1 group of storage that's here. So what's nice about that, though, for the person that comes into the environment, they don't have to be this super admin. They simply just select that, geez, I know I need to have high I/O throughput, and when they go ahead and create this VM, it's automatically going to use the storage that has been assigned to that particular category or that particular profile. So this represents a great way of correctly using the resources that you have, making sure you don't make a mistake, and just kind of right-sizing the environment to get to the get-go. And you see the actually animation here. Once I actually move that data, or I place that data into this particular tier in this class of storage, then storage DRS can take over with some of those features I was talking about before, which is the I/O load balancing, or the space allocation, or some of the rules that can be put in place in order to do this. So again, a great example of how we use intelligent policy automation from a storage side, in addition to the deployment piece I showed you a little bit earlier with auto-deploy. But again, a very firm focus on VMware's part with vSphere 5 to add some additional storage capabilities that push us closer and closer toward finer and more granular levels of automation, and just some better use of existing resource as we move toward the cloud. One other piece that's also very, very important, as we've talked about in the past releases, but also modified with vSphere 5, is this idea of adding an SLA type of capability into the environment and making sure that we can provide a certain level of guarantee to what we're doing. And in version 4.1, we had announced a capability called Storage I/O and Network I/O control. And what those capabilities do for our customers is they allow us to assign basically kind of like a traffic cop prioritization to different VMs, or in the case of the network side, what's called a flow type. And so what you could do is say, okay, if there was ever a contentious scenario where everybody was asking for the resource at the same time, we could say, okay, you're going first, you're going second, and you're going third, and so on and so forth. And what we've decided to do in this release is modify both storage I/O and network I/O control in order to alleviate this kind of noisy neighbor problem that we've seen in the past. So if I kind of roll through this graphic, what you can see here is that I have VMs that are accessing storage and network resources. If I have a certain machine that basically requests more resource for a variety of different reasons, I can go ahead and spot that. I can understand that it's basically starving other VMs that are in the environment. And then I can make accurate adjustments here to make sure that I can actually dial that particular VM back down once I give kind of VIP status to the VM that you see to the left and the one you see to the middle. So in this particular case, what I've actually done is I'm assuming for the sake of our example, and this happens in the real world all the time as well, that these particular VMs have something more important going on with them than the VM all the way to the right. So if you use a really kind of a basic example, imagine having a mission-critical database and then maybe something else that was like file sharing or video type of capability, something that may not be as germane to the business or something that necessarily doesn't help you collect revenue going on that VM all the way to the right. So once I do that, you can see that we've automatically adjusted what happens to the VM on the right that was grabbing all this resource. We can now dial it down to an appropriate level of resource across the board. One thing that also happens with I/O and storage on both the storage and the network sides is that even when you don't put advanced priorities in place, you can actually set a very level playing field so everybody gets equal share of a resource, and then you can put these more advanced rules into place. For this particular release, we've added on the storage side the ability now to also include any NFS storage. So in the previous versions, we had iSCSI and Fiber Channel only. Now we add NFS storage to the mix. And then on the network I/O control side, I mentioned the term flow type before. We were actually looking at different network flows that we could put through this I/O control mechanism. Now what we've done is we've added a per VM control. So it just gets a little bit more granular where I can say this VM instead of saying this flow type, and it should help users definitely get a little bit more value out of this particular SLA component. But definitely something that helps us really kind of this idea of trust your cloud, which we've been talking about with our cloud infrastructure. This definitely gets at that because we're able to provide these SLA kind of management capabilities that make sure that we're aligning with proper business goals, and we align IT with those business goals. So the last piece just on the infrastructure componentry, we've also done a lot of work related to the virtual machines themselves. So virtual machines in this particular release, we have some better support for 3D graphics using things like Windows Aero, USB 3, some smart card reader support, client-connected USB devices, and then also some other support around things like Mac OS X, some better use of cores through the actual GUI and from the virtualization side, and a variety of other components. I'll talk a little bit later, too. Based on the format changing of the virtual machine, we can also create those larger VMs, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. But this is definitely one of those areas where reading the release notes in any particular topic area will help you understand the exact specs behind some of these enhancements that we've done for vSphere 5. So speaking of some of those other areas, let's go on and talk more around application services. So we'll talk a little bit about availability, a little bit about security, and also a little bit about scalability as well. So the first piece has to do with running those mission-critical applications in the virtualization platform. And many of you probably saw, based on the larger cloud infrastructure announcement that we've made, one of our key goals is to help businesses run applications of any type, and business-critical applications most specifically, and with a lot of confidence, and making sure that you understand that the virtualization platform is going to provide the performance and scale required for these applications. And not only does it provide that piece, but it can also provide the availability that's also required. So with this particular release, we're now announcing the ability for us to create very large virtual machines. So you can throw a lot of CPUs at it, you can throw a lot of memory at it, and the result is a very large VM, and the maximum size that you can create up to now is a 32-way by 1 terabyte of RAM VM. So you may not have an application that pushes to that particular size just yet, but you will, and we're seeing more and more customers really needing to expand upon the boundaries that we've had in previous releases. This is a 4x jump for us in terms of what we offered in the past. And again, the idea here is that any application that you have, regardless of size, you're going to get the performance that you need out of the virtualization environment. And you see a few of the applications here that have become very, very popular in terms of people deploying those on virtual machines and in the virtualization platform itself. So we'll continue to drive scalability from a number of angles, but this particular release was focused on increasing the size of the virtual machine itself and to increase that by a factor of 4. So again, a lot of flexibility now and the ability to run applications of just about any size inside of the virtualized environment. Now, scale and performance is all good, but as I mentioned before, availability is also a key construct that we need to make sure we discuss. And so that is why we've actually re-architected the back end of our HA, or high availability technology. And what's interesting about this is actually high availability from VMware is actually one of our most popular features and most well-utilized features across the customer segment. So you might say, geez, well, why would you re-architect the back end of something that was already doing great things for our customer base? Well, the reason for that is we think we can actually make it even better. And so the way I think about this is the best HA technology for the virtualization platform just got better with the vSphere 5 release. So in re-architecting the back end, what that allows us to do is basically provide three key benefits. Number one, help us provide better guarantees into the use of a particular HA cluster or group of machines, and make sure we can utilize things like the storage architecture to provide some of the heartbeat and other information that we need in order to keep a HA cluster healthy and keep awareness of both hosts and VMs. We can also, with this re-architecture, simplify the setup dramatically. So in the past cases, it may have taken you 20 minutes, an hour, or longer to go ahead and either add a new machine or a host into an HA cluster, or to create a new cluster of high availability. Now we can actually do that in 2 minutes or less per host. So a dramatic time savings in terms of the setup. And because of that, I think what you're going to see is a lot of users will use HA in a lot more different areas. So they may not have put a particular host into this HA mode because they didn't have the time or the know-how to go ahead and set it up. Now that we're able to simplify this dramatically, we should see a lot more people that proliferate HA into their environments even further than what we've seen today. And the last piece has to do with scalability. And so I think for some customers, they may have thought, geez, I know that there's a certain scalability limit to HA, but I'm going to go well underneath that because I'm actually not as comfortable expanding to some of the higher reaching values that we're able to support. And now what you'll see with this environment is we've done a whole lot of scalability testing to make sure that we can push to very, very high levels of the number of hosts inside of an HA cluster. And so, again, in addition to being simplified, if you can expand and support additional hosts, this is going to provide, I think, a lot of confidence for people to use HA maybe in spots that they never have used it before, and keep their costs low, but keep their capabilities high so they can kind of do more with less with the HA technology. So in terms of additional features and enhancements, we will have those for the release itself as well. And let's get into some of those as we've already talked about some of the new changes to the infrastructure and also to the application side. So a few that I wanted to call out, I mentioned these a little bit earlier when we talked about that larger building block slide. But the first is the new capability to have vCenter Server now running as an appliance. We have in the past told customers you can run vCenter Server as a Windows VM, or you could run it on a dedicated Windows box. And some folks have a need in their environment to run in a completely Linux environment, or basically have some flexibility in how they deploy our vCenter Server. So if you're familiar with VMware, and probably many of you are, you have the notion of this concept of a virtual appliance, so a dedicated VM serving a specific function. And what we're going to introduce for the first time is a dedicated VM running the vCenter Server environment, and that's based on Linux. So it uses SLES in order to do this, and basically gives you, as a user, the ability now to have some options when you run the vCenter Server itself, so the main brain behind the overall virtualization platform. So again, another choice that you have in terms of deploying your environment. There will be some slight differences between the vCenter Server appliance running on Linux and the one we have on Windows, so make sure that you're up to speed on those if you're a more advanced user. But we really think that this provides a great way forward for providing a lot of flexibility in the environment. You always want to give choice, and we're trying to do that from this particular perspective. Along those same lines, when you talk about choice, the web client that we have for vSphere and the interaction with vCenter Server itself, more specifically, we're now allowing this web client to give a browser from any browser in the world. You could go ahead and access the virtualization platform, create any of the critical tasks that you do. We still have the legacy interface that we've offered for some period of time, but that's, again, OS specific. You have to be running that on a Windows-based machine. In this particular case with the web client, you can go ahead and run it from any type of device and be able to manage the overall infrastructure itself. So again, some good choices here for end users in terms of deployment of vCenter Server and then also access to it using this web client. For any of you already familiar with some of the efforts that VMware has done in the past, we used to offer something called a web access GUI that has gone end of life, and we've produced this new web client, which is a much better way forward, we think, as customers want to experience the broadest set of options when it comes to management of our flagship platform. So in addition to that, here's some of the best of the rest features related to the overall release itself. Some of these we've talked about a little bit, others we have not. So across the platform, some better EFI support. Also on the network side, talking about adding some key capabilities to our distributed switch, basically making it more enterprise class with things like NetFlow, span support, link layer, discovery protocol. Again, some of these may or may not apply to your environment. Then we already talked about the I/O control, but also there is a new ESX firewall as well, part of the ESXI Hypervisor itself, a stateless and service-oriented firewall to help better protect that environment. And then, as you can see, a lot going on in relation to storage. We're going to update our file system as well as modify a number of capabilities that we've had. We talked about the I/O control. We're also adding some capabilities to some of the offload APIs that we've had for some period of time. In addition to that, having some more detailed storage vMotion snapshot support. And then as we kind of round out the list up the top, we talked about the changes to HA, but we're making the change for vMotion to now support some higher latency links, so up to 10 milliseconds in delay between two hosts that would be communicating or having a vMotion between it. And then also modifying our data recovery capability to add additional support and additional performance, some email reporting, as well as some further modification of our dedupe engine to increase performance. And then on the management side, some other functionality related to vCenter Server, as well as the ability to, this actually came out prior to the launch, now have an iPad client that interacts with the vSphere setup. So as I mentioned before, we've talked about vSphere 5 in some pretty good detail. Release notes are the best candidate for additional information. But let's mention just a few other topics that I think are very relevant for today's launch of vSphere 5. First being ESXI migration. We talked about this already when we talked about convergence, but if you had to go from ESX to ESXI as a result of an upgrade, we can actually give you a lot of detail around why and how we've been moving to ESXI over time. What are the benefits behind doing that? The quick and dirty rundown on, as you see here, is we released ESXI with a very firm goal in mind, and that being able to shrink the size of the hypervisor, cause less impact in the environment from a patching perspective. And again, we really believe that this is the next generation way to go for our customers as they continue to move forward. And if you need to go from ESX to ESXI, we can help you do that. Even outside of an upgrade, you can go ahead and go through that process. We have a lot of good materials to help you do that. If you do go from 4.1 or 4 to 5, we actually can also help you do the migration with our Update Manager. So the Update Manager tool will actually help convert from ESX to ESXI as part of the overall upgrade to version 5. And there's some very key pieces of information about doing that that we have for you up on the Info Center as well as in some of the documentation. So make sure that you read that if you're interested in that particular topic. As we've talked about, this has always been in the release notes statements. This is something that we've been talking about for actually the last 3 years, quite frankly, and that's the movement to ESXi. So we've been telling people about the fact that we're going to do this, and now we've made the definitive statement that this is the time. So with vSphere 5, again, you're going to need to use ESXi moving forward. And the last piece is some of the newer information that we have. Before I show you the Info Center itself so you can get an idea of what's going on, some of the more kind of prescriptive information for you as to how to move from ESX to ESXi. So obviously this Info Center that I've been talking about is a good thing, and I'll show you a screenshot in just a second. Start testing with ESXi if you haven't done so already. ensure that third-party solutions that are used today are ESXi ready. Many of them are. It's just a fact of people getting more familiar with ESXi versus ESX. And then also familiarizing yourself with remote options, as well as thinking about this transition to ESXi as part of an upgrade. Because one of the things we always look for when you do any type of upgrade or shift in architectures is you look for a natural transition point. And we think that one of those natural transition points is the update or upgrade to vSphere 5. And so to just close out this particular section around ESXi migration, just want to show you the latest info center. We have this available today up on, again, VMware.com. If you go to the vSphere tab under Products, and then on the right side there's a bunch of links that we have, and one of those is ESXi and ESX Info Center. So please go ahead and utilize this resource. We've also stripped out all the marketing fluff, so you have a lot of heavy technical detail there as to why, how, when, a lot of those details that would be very, very important as an end user. Okay. Now, to wrap up this module, I want to just show you a couple of other key elements, one related to packaging, and then one related to just some other information, and then also cover very quickly our Heartbeat 6.4 release. So the first piece, just to show you here, the kits and additions with vSphere. These remain the same as what we've offered in the past. So you have a couple of different choices as to how you deploy vSphere. For some of those of you who are a smaller customer, maybe in the SMB space, where you're looking to create maybe some 20 to 30 virtual machines, we do have two offerings that we have, one called Essentials and one called Essentials Plus. These provide management and also the server-based software in one small and integrated package. You can see there both Essentials and Essentials Plus would allow you to make better use of your infrastructure by using virtualization and then having centralized management. And then Essentials Plus takes you up further from there by offering you live migration, what we call vMotion, high availability through the HA technology that I've been talking about, and then also adds the backup capability we have called data recovery to that overall mix and product stack. The idea, too, as well as with Essentials and Essentials Plus, you have a very small or low-end price point related to a lot of great and key functionality that we're able to deliver. One thing that is also going to make Essentials Plus even more valuable to many of you users is that you require shared storage in order to utilize HA and vMotion. So in a lot of cases, that's usually some type of SAN environment. And for some of you, that may not be a reality today due to a variety of factors. We're actually releasing, as part of this launch as well, something called the vSphere Storage Appliance that will utilize a disk inside of each of the servers that you're virtualizing in order to create a shared storage repository without having to purchase additional gear in order to make that happen. So if that's of interest to you, definitely refer to the other module that we have called the vSphere Storage Appliance. In addition to that, we have our legacy larger environments too. We offer these a la carte, or actually as part of what we call acceleration kits, which are designed to kind of start folks out on what they're doing. And you can see here we have our standard Enterprise and Enterprise Plus offerings. What will happen, a lot of the functionality that I referred to earlier in this presentation, a lot of that will fall underneath Enterprise Plus because that provides the most value and the lowest cost per VM that we have. But we do have several other offerings like our standard and like our enterprise offering that allow you to get to different levels of virtualization depending on what you're trying to do, what you have budget for, and what your overall goals are with virtualization. Anything else just related to that? One of the things I wanted to show you, we also have, in addition to that info center that I was talking about in relation to ESXi and ESX, we have something called the Upgrade Center for vSphere. And what this provides is detailed information on how to move from one version to the next. And when we've actually, as we've launched vSphere 5, this information is very specific to the 4.x to 5.0 migration, but you can also view an archived version of this information out on the web that would allow you to go from, let's say, a previous version prior to 4 if you're still on a legacy implementation. And again, we stripped out all the marketing detail, giving you deep technical detail on how to actually move from a previous version up to 5.0. So definitely keep this in your bag of tricks. And you can see, too, again, similar to how you access the Info Center, if you go up and select vSphere page from VMware.com, again, on those right links that we have, in addition to the Info Center, we have the Upgrade Center right below that, and that will help you plan out your migration strategy. Okay, the last piece I wanted to get into in today's session, talking a little bit about Heartbeat 6.4. Again, many may not be familiar with this technology, but basically what Heartbeat is able to do is provide you with an ability to help protect or provide high availability for vCenter server. So you have an active passive implementation, and suddenly something happens to a vCenter server, the brains of your operation. You can fail over to another one and make sure you conduct business operations. We've been offering this for some period of time, but in this particular version, we're adding new capabilities around its architecture so that we can go ahead and reach these over the network at the same time. We can have deeper integration with our vCenter server, and then also make sure we support the latest and greatest, not only of our tools that you see down the bottom there with vCenter Server 5 and View Composer, but also being able to support additional database architectures like the SQL Server 2008 R2. In addition, just wrapping up some final comments that we have around this particular module, we have our upcoming VMworld event that will happen in late August, early September. That'll happen in Las Vegas. And for those of you who are listening overseas, we will have a version of VMworld that will also happen in Copenhagen in the October timeframe. So you'll get some more information about all these topics at these events. They're very valuable not only for getting information from VMware, but also from the networking perspective with your own colleagues and people that have done and tried different things. They're very, very popular. They also provide you with a great experience around our VMware labs. One of the most popular things we've ever done at VMware is provide basically this ability to go ahead and sit down on a machine and kick the tires on anything that we have that we offer from our product portfolio. And it provides a great kind of testing environment, better understanding as to how these things are going to impact what's going on, and also help provide value to the end user customer. So with that, what I wanted to do was say thank you. Please go ahead and grab information from some of the other modules if you have a chance. But for the rest of VMware, I'm Mike Adams, Senior PMM for vSphere 5, and I'd like to sign off and thank you for attending today.